I just wanted to say, just in a nutshell, that what the new, there's been the Lisbon agenda a few years back in the 90s, where people would acknowledge that, it was important to invest in knowledge and in innovation to have growth, high growth in Europe. And then in a later stage, people understood that without structural reforms, this would not go through. So the Sapir report, for example, which we did for Prodi in the early 2000s, and other reports have stressed the need for structural reforms for liberalizing product market, labor market. And so that has been the kind of second step in our thinking about growth policy in Europe. But I think now there is a third step, which is to rethink the role of the state. And why do we need to think the role of the state? Because we are at a difficult juncture where, in fact, we have to deliver on what I call the Monti triangle, after Mario Monti, who stressed the need for that triangle, which is to restore budgetary discipline, to reduce public debt and budget deficit, which have been increasing a lot, particularly since 2008. But we need at the same time to guarantee long-run growth, because if you don't have long-run growth, you cannot solve your budgetary problems in the long run. And at the same time, you need to have inclusive growth, because if you let inequality go up too much, you create all kinds of problems. So you want to have the triangle between budgetary discipline, long-run growth, and justice, social justice. So now, how do you do that? And essentially, the way is to think the following, is that you have to move away from the old paradigm. One paradigm was the laissez-faire, the ultra-liberal, where you said you have minimal state, and the state does not intervene, and you minimize tax and spend and expenditure. That's one way, but that doesn't go far, and we see that it is not producing anything good in the United Kingdom. It's not working either in the United States. It doesn't seem to be a good model. And the second strategy is to have the whole Keynesian policy, where you just manage the economy through the demand side and through spending, in an on-targeted way. And that doesn't work either, especially when you have open economies. If you start, increasing demand in your country, that might, translate into increased budgetary trade deficit. And it's not an option anymore when you have tight budgetary constraints. So what you need to do is to have, in fact, a policy where you have targeted investment. You decide to go through supply side. You target, things like education. For example, in Portugal, I know that you can do a lot, and you've been doing already, to improve your education system, because we know that good PISA tests are very good for growth. So you need to work on the quality of education a lot. Another area is supporting small and medium-sized enterprises that are innovating, and you need to revive industrial policy. So the view there is that you can reconcile industrial policy and competition policy. There is no reason why industrial policy has to be anti-competition policy. There is a way to govern industrial policy, which is pro-competition. So the idea is to say you have to be selective in your investments. You cannot invest everywhere. You target areas which are growth enhancing, like education, like support to innovating small and medium-sized enterprise, and smart industrial policy. That means you push sectors like green technologies, like biotech, that are sectors that are driving growth. And that I think is part of the new way of doing policy. The question is, how can you both reduce your budgetary deficit and finance these targeted investments? And I think there, you need two things. You need to reduce spending in all kinds of areas where you have too much state. So for example, administrative costs, you can reduce a lot with the progress of information and communication technologies. The second thing you can do is that, there is a way to manage health system more efficiently. And there, for example, in France, there are a lot of things that could be done in that area. So there are ways where you can reduce or you can make spending more efficient. But at the same time, you need a big fiscal reform to make sure you get the fiscal revenues to invest in those selected areas. So you need a more fair tax system it will achieve two goals. One is to help you finance your investment. The other one, it will also improve social cohesion, because if you have too much inequality, that can destroy, the supply of public goods. So it's very important that growth that tends to generate inequality is being corrected, and fiscal reform also helps maintain social cohesion and trust in the economy. So that's the kind of line that the other thing which is also important is because you are doing targeted investments, you don't invest everywhere. You need to have democracy and checks and balances to make sure that politicians are not helping their friends, that they are really targeting sectors with objective criteria and with checks and balances. So democracy, free press, media, independence of the justice, of the judiciary with regard to the executive, to have a systematic evaluation of public policies, all this democratic part is very important to make sure that you can have really targeted supply side growth enhancing policy. So the idea is to say, well, you can have a smart state. It's neither the laissez-faire, it's nor the Keynesian. You act on the supply side, you target your investment, you make sure that you have a good governance of your investment in education, in industrial policy, or in other areas which are growth enhancing, and you support that by reduction in spending in areas where you can reduce spending, but at the same time, you should make sure that you maintain education and that you have, the fiscal reform that makes sure that you can reconcile the budgetary discipline and the financing of growth-enhancing reforms. And I think that's the way. That's my thinking on these issues. I have to run now, unfortunately, but I would have loved to stay longer, but I really have to go. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.